Hey guys. Travis, how you doing? Hey, there's a hell of a microphone here. It's kind of
You're
intimidating.
being recorded.
Yes.
So
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so apparently, directors were telling us that you had the rights to this book for the original book forever.
In perpetuity.
Yeah.
No, so when Leica started about 10 years ago, and the first project that we took on and started developing for a feature film was Coraline. The second project that we took on was Here Be Monsters, written by Alan Snow. And I read Alan's manuscript. It was nearly 10 years ago, and when I read it, I was struck by how much it was fit in with the kinds of stories that I loved growing up. Things like by Charles Dickens or Roald Dahl. It had a really twisted sense of humor, like you would find in a Monty Python sketch. But it was this big book. It was over 500 pages, and so I felt like if we could get to the essence of it in a 90-minute film story, we could have something that was really special. And it just was a long, winding road to get there. It took us nearly that entire time to get to this point. So yeah, not forever, but it felt like forever.
Well, almost your entire history.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Well, the three films that have come out of feature films that have come out of Leica at this point, this one is probably the most political. We were just talking to Sir Ben about the whole white hats and the red hats and what the cheese represents and all that stuff. Did that kind of stand out to you at the beginning? Just kind of that this is more than just a kid's fable here. That there's something else going on.
Yeah, I think that one of the tricky bits and one of the hardest things to when you try to get to the film, the simple core film story, it has to come from somewhere personal. It has to be about something that you deeply connect with. Otherwise, I think you're building it on a foundation of shifting sands. And so for us, the avenue into the film came down to with me and Graham and Tony, we are all fathers of young kids. And there was something about that aspect of the story about kind of what makes a family, and looking at it from our perspective at our kids, and then looking back at it from their perspective to us horrible fathers, and imagining how we can tell a really beautiful story that analyzes that kind of idea, because it is rooted in Dickens and that kind of stuff. There is that socioeconomic thing, and we wanted to honor that. But first, you had to get the core story, which is personal, and then you can start layering in the metaphor and the political and the societal and all that kind of stuff. But it's certainly there, and but we also don't want to be overly explicit about it. We want to make sure that we deal with it, subtly enough where it's fun. If you're not into that sort of thing, you're not going to be bothered by it. But if you want to kind of take, be open to those kind of ideas, it's certainly there.
I'm a fan of Coraline, and Coraline was much darker. And what I really loved about the Boxtrolls, there's a darkness to it, but it's funny and it's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something?
Yeah. We don't want to have a house style visually. We don't want to have a house style thematically. We want every film that we do to be distinct from each other. That said, I think we have a philosophy towards filmmaking that you can see. So there's kind of threads of DNA in all the films that kind of unite it. It comes from one place. And it really comes down to the kinds of films that we love and the kind of storytelling we think is effective, which is dynamic storytelling with a lot of up and down, that has a blend of darkness and light, of intensity and warmth, of emotion and heart, and but doesn't shy away from things just because it's uneasy. Because for me, I think the kind of films that I loved growing up and the kind of films that I see my kids being drawn to, and the kind of things that we can talk about that offers moments of connectivity, are things that are films that deal with stuff that matters. And so those are the kind of films that we make. Now, Coraline was a kind of a dark modern fairy tale, and it was rooted in those great fairy tales, those classic fairy tales, which meant that if you were going to do that the right way, if you were going to honor it, you had to go in kind of scary, dark places. That was what was essential for that story. For Paranorman, it was a lighter story, but it was rooted in, it was kind of an homage to, it was a supernatural comedic thriller rooted in kind of Hammer films and those great horror films from the 70s and 80s. And so again, because of the kind of story it was, it had to go to scary places in the course of the telling. The Boxtrolls is a different kind of story. It's an absurdist Dickensian coming-of-age fable. that doesn't mean that there's nothing else there. It still has the dynamism of all the stories we tell, but it's not really scary. It has intensity. It goes in places that are a little potentially uncomfortable, but that just means that when you come out of it at the other end, the joy and the elation that you feel it means something because of the pain that you've gone through to get there. And so it's definitely a lighter story than either Coraline or Paranorman, but it also still has those same kinds of that same kind of dynamism, all the stories that we tell.
As an animator, can you talk about what it is about stop motion that you prefer to regular animation? I don't know what else to call it. And do you think that stop motion requires a specific kind of story to tell, or could you have done Frozen?
You're on record.
It would be physically possible for us to do Frozen.
Well, you know,
I think that I will say this. I think that all forms of filmmaking have their benefits and their limitations. I think that Tony is quick to say that stop motion has all the worst parts of live action and animation and none of the benefits of either. I don't think that's absolutely true, but I will say that stop motion is very difficult. I think it tends to draw a certain kind of person to do it because it takes a certain kind of person to do it and to do it well. But I think as a medium, there's nothing about stop motion that draws a certain kind of story. I think us as storytellers, as filmmakers, we gravitate to certain kinds of stories, but I think stop motion as a medium is agnostic, and I think that you can see that in like the films that Aardman does. They're certainly not dark and scary. They're very British, but they're fun and light films, and they do it very effectively. If you look at the film that Wes Anderson did in stop motion, that's certainly not a dark and scary film, which people tend to associate with stop motion. It's a kind of a fun, twee thing. It's a Wes Anderson film. It's exactly what it is, I think that one of the things that we're trying to do, and we work very hard at doing, is to take the medium in places where it's never been before. And we do that by embracing technology in a way that hadn't been done in the medium before. Stop motion is 100 years old, but I also feel like if you look at the films that we've done over the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've taken the medium and we've dramatically evolved it in that short period of time. And I feel like we're still just we're just scratching the surface on what you can do in stop motion. And which is weird to think when something's 100 years old. But I think by merging technology with the process, by taking handcrafted stuff and technology, big meaty caveman hands and big astronaut brains and putting those things together, I think you're going to get a lot of innovation. That's what we've had from film to film to film. And as I look ahead, I'm very proud of the 3 films that we've made, but as I look at the 3 films that we have to come, I'm even more excited because we will continue to branch out and do different kinds of things.
So do you think there will be a sequel to this?
I'm generally, as someone who runs a studio, but not only that, but as someone who's just a fan of film, I'm generally opposed to sequels. I think that, look, we live in an era and in an industry currently dominated by sequels and prequels and remakes and reboots and, what have you. And, these things were old presents or rewrapped and offered up as new gifts. I think that it's becoming an echo chamber, and there can be short-term gain for that. But in the end, it's like, what are we doing for the evolution of film when we continue to say the life cycle continues to get shorter and shorter? And I think that as an industry, we've got to promote new ideas, new voices, original films. So, there are exceptions to that. Some stories are big. Lord of the Rings, that's a big story. 3 films, great, love it. The Harry Potter films, that's a big story. Love it, tell it. But, a film is supposed to circle around the most pivotal moment of your protagonist. And so what's a sequel? The second most pivotal moment of your protagonist's life? It's like immediately it's something that's diminished from what it was. That's not to say that you can't do something interesting in sequels, because you can, but it's not what I'm interested in doing. I think we're always interested in doing something new and something unusual and something unique, and you don't do that by regurgitating something you've already done.
Were you a Gumby fan? That was the first stop motion.
I'm sorry, what?
Gumby?
Yeah, of course.
Stop motion that I remember. I thought that was where it began, but you said it was
I-
100 years old.
Well, the stop motion is, as a technique, it's 100 years old. I love Gumby. I love the Ray Harryhausen films. I love the Rankin Bass things, the Pinocchio and Mad Monster Party, all that stuff. I love that stuff. It's incredibly crude, like you look at it now, but it does have a charm to it that I think is unique to what it is, which is handcrafted stuff being brought to life by the hands of an artist.
So you
I
mentioned
can still watch Gumby.
It's still pretty
you mentioned
awesome.
the 3 films coming out. Do you want to talk about any of them?
I can't tell you what they are, but I will say that we've already started production on our next film. We have about a minute of footage in the can, so I'll see you guys in 2 years when we're done with it. We'll probably announce it within the next 3 or 4 months, so probably end of the year or beginning of next year. I'm very excited about it. I think it's something very special, and it's totally unlike what we've done before.
I know you're not allowed to say it, but Coraline and Paranorman had supernatural elements to
Yep.
it, unlike the Boxtrolls. Will it go back towards that direction, supernatural stuff again? Or you guys are venturing to?
I think that there are superficial, both Coraline and Paranorman had some superficial similarities, that they were contemporary American stories set in contemporary American towns with a supernatural glaze on top of it. But I think they're very different kinds of stories. We certainly won't shy away from scary things or supernatural things if we feel like that's important to the story, but that's not the defining quality of what we do. We're really interested in telling interesting stories that kind of expand what you can do in the medium, tackling different kinds of genres within the medium. And so, and what I will say about the next film, and in fact, as I look ahead, the next few films that we've got coming down the pike, they're very, very different than what we've done in the past.
Your 2 features have both been Academy Award nominated films.
Yes.
And is there, sort of a little bit of pressure to kind of continue that success? Because I know, Pixar has gone through this thing where, everybody's waiting for them to, have a bomb. So, I mean, with you guys, I mean, there's 2, and this is 3rd. This one looks excellent to me. But, I mean, do you guys look at kind of the bigger picture of how this fits in with the industry and being recognized by the industry?
There's certain things that you can control, and there's some things that they're just out of your hands. The things that we can control, the kinds of films we make, how we make them, the choices that we make as a filmmaking team, those are all things that we can control. How a film is perceived, how it's received, how well it does at the box office, what the critical reaction is. There's nothing we can do about that. All we can do is control the kinds of films that we make. And so we are incredibly thankful that the films have been so well received to this point. Obviously, we want as many people in the world to watch and enjoy and love our films as possible. But you cannot. I don't think you can approach a film with that kind of stuff in mind where, okay, I hope to get critical acclaim on this thing. It's like, no, you just have to follow your instincts. You have to know that this is, as kind of filmmakers, this is what we think. These are the kind of stories that we tell. This is what we want to do in the medium. And that is your guide rather than, some guy that works for the New York Times might like this if we do this. It's like that can't be something you think about. We can't think about the members of the Academy and what they gravitate towards, because it's like that's shifting sands. Again, it's like we have to do what we think is good, and then hopefully people respond to it. And I mean, so far they have. So
What
fingers
about
crossed.
the artistic decision of adding Winnie as a character? Because you have the boy, and you had a girl protagonist in the first one, a
Yeah.
boy in the second one, and here you have a girl and a boy.
Mhm.
So, I mean, was there, was it just storytelling that it just made more sense to put a girl?
For us, it was driven by again, good storytelling. We had at the focal point of the film, Eggs, the male protagonist. A kid who was raised in squalor but kind of rich in what matters. And then at the kind of the other end of the socioeconomic strata, you have a young girl who's been lavish with gifts but starved of affection. And we thought that kind of those 2 characters kind of meeting and then kind of exploring the world in the middle about families and society and everything else was a powerful thing. It's been important for us and important for me personally in all the films that we've made as a father of boys and a girl, that we have strong female characters in all of our films, and we have, and that's something that I see moving forward. We will not do a film that doesn't have a strong female somewhere within the cast, And it's there is the old saw that that girls will see boys films, but boys won't see girl films. I think it's bullshit, and I think that it's important to to represent other elements of society. It's not all just a big boys club. That we need to have strong female characters in our films, and that's something that we do every time now.
Last question.
That was a good answer.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations on the book.
All right.
That was great.
Thanks, guys.